Now that we understand what JWTs are, let's see how we can use this within our code base. Again, here we'll be using a JWT library to help us out by doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us, but we'll see how we can do two things. First, generate the JWT when a user tries to log in or register and they are successful. And second, use that JWT when a new request is intercepted, validate the JWT is legitimate and authentic, and then if yes, allow a route to continue. If no, reject that route and provide an error to the user. Let's get into it. Once again, we open up our Visual Studio Code, and we're going to navigate into our authentication route. So basically open up our source, controllers, users, and routes. Our auth router is where we're looking, and we're going to be exploring where do we use JWTs within this process. Let's scroll down to when a user logs in. Looking at this body, it's nothing we haven't seen before within previous examples. We're unpacking our email and password. We're checking to make sure our email and password are legitimate. We're trying to find that user within our database. And then we're comparing the password that our user has in our database to the password that they submit during the login request as part of their request body. Now there is something new. Now we're generating a JSON web token. This is new. This is something that we need to implement. Once again, we're using a local function to generate this JWT. We're using our user data to generate the payload of that token. We'll need to complete the body of this function to generate a JWT. We're using a library called JSON web token. We're importing it at the top, so we have access to it. Here, we can provide a one-liner, JWT.sign, and pass in our user. We also need to pass in a secret or private key so that we know how to sign and then subsequently decrypt this token. We already have a configuration variable set within our config file in our config.ts, so we can go ahead and type config. We're going to want to import that, so let's see if we can do that automatically. Yes, we can. So it's going to be this option here. So all I'm doing, as I type that, Visual Studio Code gives me a few options for things that I think I might be trying to find. I can use my arrow keys to navigate up and down, and I know that I'm trying to import from way back, config. So by hitting that, I'm going to auto import. It's going to bring it up at the top of the page for me, and I don't have to really think much further. Command hovering over that function gives us the signature, and we're also going to need a secret or private key. So let's add this to our configuration file so we have something to use. Navigating to config.ts, let's go ahead and add a section called JWT, and we'll call this secret. Let's just go ahead and enter hello world for now. That's not a good secret, but it'll get us something that we can just use for the time being. Navigating back from our config file to our authentication route, we can go to our sign method, and we can add config. Now, once I type that, Visual Studio Code's trying to figure out what I'm trying to use. It says I have this here, auto import from way back, config. That's the configuration file I was just in, so I'm going to click that. That's going to go ahead and import automatically for me up at the top of the page. And then I can go config.jwt.secret. Now my token generation is happy, and I have a user and a secret, and that'll generate my user. Finally, we have our JWT. We know it's being generated within this local function, and we'll send a response to our client with auth is true, and we'll send that token as part of the payload along with the user information itself.